Hello and welcome back to Coach Bill's Sports Show. I'm Coach Bill. It's your first time with us. We do college football, fantasy football, pro football, play some NCAA football when I've got time. Trying to figure out and work in how we're going to do some play breakdowns. Hopefully I can get that to you here sooner rather than later. But always trying to improve, right? Thank you for joining us. Let's huddle up and let's get down to it. So today we're going to be breaking down college football's top 25 list. Some big surprises personally for me on this list, but what's not surprising is the top three. Everybody and their brother knew it was going to be Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia in some form or fashion. I don't want to say it was no-brainer, but it was fairly obvious that those three teams were going to be your top three going into this season. First surprise on the list is Clemson at 4. This one really surprised me because the people that are voting must see something different than I see, or have a higher belief that DJ has figured it out, fixed his mechanical flaws and his decision-making issues. That or they have faith in the true freshman Kubiak and him being the next Trevor Lawrence. I just don't see it from watching tapes and films. DJ still has same mechanical issues he was having issues with last year. He hasn't been more decisive, at least not that I've seen. And if you're being ranked in the top 4, they're saying you're a college football playoff team, and I just don't see it from Clemson. They have a good defense. Don't get me wrong. They have a wonderful defense. They've got some skilled talent players, but they have offensive line questions. And their quarterback question is a big question. Do you have a true freshman, or do you have DJ who's got some decision-making issues? Either way, it's too high for me on this list. Next up is honestly a team that I think is the biggest miss on the list for me, in Notre Dame at number 5. Listen, Notre Dame's not a bad team. I'm not saying they shouldn't be ranked, but they're not the 5th best team in the nation. They're not. And it's going to be very evident when they play Ohio State that first game of the season. Ohio State is going to boat race them. It's going to be sad. It's going to be bad. To the point where I would be surprised if we're not looking at Notre Dame falling from 5 into the 20s after that first week as an overcorrection. I think personally, when I did my rankings, I had them in the mid-teens. Somewhere between 15 and 19 is where I personally have them shaking out. But definitely not a 5. Team that I think that should have been higher, probably even, I think they would have been my number 5 team, Texas A&M. No qualms here. Solid team coming out of the SEC West. If they can beat Alabama, they could represent the West in the SEC championship game. They're that good of a team. It's just one of those things. Not much to say. They're a solid team. They should be in the playoff picture, depending on how their season plays out. If they can beat Alabama, they will definitely be high in the playoff picture. Next on the list at number 7 is Utah. Personally, they're my number 4 team. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know I've got them as a college football playoff team. I think I have them ranked 3rd going into the college football playoff. But solid team. Definitely set up for a good run this year. Going to have a hard game against USC, but other than that, it's going to be fairly straightforward for Utah. Go to your games, win your games. You might need a little bit of things to go right for you in the USC game, but starting at number 7, I have no issues with. Number 8, Michigan. Michigan was a playoff team last year, so I don't want to discount them too much. But you had an entire offseason of their coach trying to leave the team. That tells me a lot. And I don't see Michigan beating Ohio State again. I don't see Michigan repeating the type of year they had last year. And when your coach tries to leave you for an entire offseason and just isn't able to pull it off, plus with the talent you lost, I understand they're coming off of a playoff, and this is a show of respect ranking for them at number 8. But personally, for me, I don't think Michigan's going to be a top 10 team this year. Team I do think is going to be a top 10 team this year is Oklahoma. Brett Venables, the defensive coordinator from Clemson, before taking the Oklahoma head coaching job, was a very, very smart man, was able to buy his time and wait for a solid opportunity. And that's what he got here at Oklahoma. Yes, they had a lot of talent leave, but they've got a lot of talent left on those cupboards. Solid position. They'll obviously have to prove it on the field. He's got to build some talent before they join the SEC, but a little bit of a weaker conference. I don't want to say weaker. It's a top-heavy conference. There's definitely a gap between 1, 2, 3, and then the rest of the conference in my eyes. But should definitely be should be able to win their conference. The only real threat to Oklahoma winning the conference this year is actually the next team on the list, which is number 10, Baylor. Baylor is Oklahoma's only true competition, in my opinion, for the conference this year. Baylor's a solid team, both offensively and defensively. The thing that scares me about Baylor is they have a history of just losing that random game they weren't supposed to. Last year, they were a 14-point favorite, I believe, going into TCU and lost to TCU. They just always seem to drop that one game every year that was just a head scratcher. You look at it and you go, well, how did that team lose to that team? That doesn't add up. So Baylor, definitely a solid team, definitely a team to be mindful of, but can they avoid the road bump? That's my question with Baylor. Number 11 is Oregon. Oregon will definitely fall out of the rankings entirely. I think they start the season 1-2. They start the season with Georgia in week 1, and I just don't think they're ready for Georgia. I don't. It's essentially a home. Excuse me. It's essentially a home game for Georgia in Atlanta, and it's going to be very tough for Oklahoma. Very, very tough. And then week 3, they had draw BYU, and BYU is one of those teams that I'm sneaky high on. They are going to catch some people, and they're really going to – BYU is going to do some things this year to shake up college football. And it's going to be wonderful to see as a college football fan. Number 12, Oklahoma State. It's a wonderfully fun team to watch. Are they a real contender? No, but in the teens, you're not looking for contenders as much. You're looking for those wild cards, those solid teams. And Oklahoma State definitely falls into that. They're talented. Wonderful, wonderful games to watch with them. But do they challenge for their conference? No. Do they challenge for the national championship? No. 12 seems a little rich, but might be where they end up at the end of the year, just with how they play. Number 13, NC State, returning an offense that did really well last year, efficiency-wise, and a quarterback that did really well, efficiency-wise. Can they continue to progress that this year is the question for NC State. If they can, they'll climb the rankings, and it'll essentially be NC State, Clemson, and Miami deciding the ACC this year. So there's a lot of hope for NC State. I think this is the highest they've started the season since the 1970s. I want to say 70s or 80s. It's been a hot minute since NC State has started this high. So kudos to NC State. Kudos to the Wolfpack. But you got to go out and prove it on the field, and you got to repeat what you did last year and then some. Number 14, I don't think anybody's surprised by number 14 with the amount of talent that this team has, but USC. Lincoln Riley is going to do well in USC. Brought over a lot of talent, pulled in a lot of talent from the transfer portal. It's a very talented group. I think it takes 2 years. I think this year he kind of gets his feet underneath him. Maybe loses 2 games this year. I have him losing to Utah, and there's a couple of other little games where it's can they kind of. So if they go, I've got essentially 3 matchups for them where it's a toss-up. And if they can win 2 out of 1, it's a solid season, 10-win season to start. USC is definitely going to be a national contender again, which is good for football. Always good when a West Coast team has a strong season. And USC is just one of those schools that has that pedigree. So when USC is good, it's good for football. Number 15 is Michigan State. Always a tough, strong team. They're going to punch you in the face, and they're just going to keep punching until you can knock them out or until you get knocked out. And it's just the kind of football they play there at Michigan State. I have them as a 9-win team this season, which, 15 in the nation, that seems about right for them. Can they break that ceiling? Anything's possible. Do I really see it legitimately happen? Not so much. Nothing against Michigan State. Sparty up there, they're a wonderful school, but when you have to play Michigan, Ohio State, and the schedule they play, it's a tough one. Miami is at 16, and they're a wild card for me. Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback he's progressing at a point where I'm pleasantly looking forward to watching him play. A kid throws lasers. He just throws lasers, and it's a wonderful. Miami has a wonderful, talented team. They've got a lot of natural speed on that team. Things break right for Miami. They could be, knocking on that college football playoff door. Now that's an outside chance. There's got to be some very good breaks for them in a couple games, but 16, yeah, I'd say they're I'd say they're there. I'd say that's one of those teams that could take a step forward and be in the teens, but probably will be in the low teens. Excuse me. Maybe even in the single digits, the 7, 8, 9s. Miami can do some stuff this year. Question is, will they? Number 17, Pittsburgh, is one of those teams where I disagree. I understand they won the ACC last year. They also had a first-round quarterback last year. They had a Volishnikov winner at wide receiver last year, both of which aren't on the team anymore. I don't think they're a playoff team this year. I don't. I think they overachieved last year with a quarterback and wide receiver that were just that are no longer there. And I think this year they come a little bit more down to earth. I'm not looking at their schedule right now, but I know they've got a week 2 matchup with the University of Tennessee, and Tennessee's going to be a hard team to keep track with this year. I understand, I'm a fan, but Tennessee's offense it's a scary offense. It is. And if you're breaking in a new quarterback and it's the second game of the season, I understand it's a home game, but second game of the season, breaking in a new quarterback, and you've got an offense where you have to score touchdowns to keep up with, it's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. Not to mention being in the ACC, there's a solid ACC team pretty much every week. I don't see Pittsburgh staying ranked throughout the year. I think they drop out. A team I do see staying ranked is Wisconsin. Wisconsin doesn't really have any tests on their schedule until they play Ohio State in the end of September. I think that's when we'll truly see what Wisconsin team we have this year is in that Ohio State game. If they can keep it close, then Wisconsin's got a team that could be a 10-win team this year. If they get boat raced, then we could see it come off the rails and kind of fall apart on Wisconsin. So it'll be very interesting to watch that game at the end of September. Especially since I see Wisconsin climbing a little bit before that game, just due to other teams' losses and stuff like that. So it'll be that's a very interesting game. And I would almost say it's a must-watch game, especially if you're a fan of either Ohio State, the Big Ten, or Wisconsin. But even as the normal college football fan, that's going to be a game to watch. Next up at 19, there's Arkansas. They're returning a lot of talent. Yes, they lost their leading receiver, but they're not a pass-heavy offense. And they're returning their quarterback. Saying they're not a pass-heavy offense is... And I'm not giving them the credit they deserve. They are a dominant run team. And they have a solid defense. If they didn't play in the SEC West, they would definitely be higher. But playing in the SEC West, it's truly one of the toughest divisions in college football. You've got Alabama, you've got Texas A&M, you've got heavy hitters every week, you've got talented teams. So, will they go undefeated? Probably not. Could they win 9-10 games this season? Yeah, I can see a chance for that. So there's some optimism around Arkansas State, and I like it. I love seeing that team do some stuff, especially since they're a little bit more of an old school team. But don't expect national championships when you're playing the SEC West. As long as Jimbo is at Texas A&M and Saban is at Alabama, and Kelly's getting his feet underneath him at LSU, so there's not going to be many easy rides through your division, let alone the conference. Speaking of the conference, we got Kentucky at number 20 checking in. They will ride or die with their quarterback, Will Lewis. He's going to determine their season for them. He just is. They've got some solid games early on. Then they get a little break and they get a harder push towards the end as well. But Kentucky's going to be a solid team this year. I think my projections have them either 8 or 9 win team this year. I think it's a 9 win team this year. And I have nothing bad to say about Kentucky. They're a solid team. And a 9 win team in the SEC it's going to be scary to play when it comes to bowl season. As long as Will Lewis plays in the bowl game. Now, if he sits the bowl game, then it's a whole different story. But be interesting to see how Kentucky plays this year. Another interesting team out of the SEC, except for the SEC West, is Ole Miss. It looks like Dart is progressing despite earlier reports. There were early reports that he just wasn't comprehending the offense. He wasn't following through with things he needed to follow through with for the team. But it seems like the closer we get to the season, the more he's progressed and the more he's become who he needs to be. If Dart takes command of this offense, they'll have a puncher's chance in every game. Will they be a 10-win team like they were last year? I don't think so. It's just, again, the SEC West, it's just one of those conferences, one of those divisions in a conference where you just don't know. You just don't know how tough it is unless you're in it. They will eat you alive if you let them. And the question is, does Ole Miss have the firepower to prevent it? Right now, from what I can see before kickoff of the season, I just don't think they do. I think they lose. They lose to Alabama. They lose to Texas A&M. And I think they lose probably 2 or 3 other games as well. So it will be interesting to watch, but their season would be completely different if they weren't in the SEC West. It's just the SEC West, man. Well, I've said it multiple times across this thing. When you've got number 19, number 1 in Alabama, you've got Texas A&M, which was 6th. Arkansas, which is 19th. And you've got Kelly at LSU now. There's a lot of roadblocks to having a 10-win season again. So I just don't see it from Ole Miss. With that being said, 22, 23, 24, and 25. I'll leave 25 out for a second. So 22, 23, 24. Wake Forest, Cincinnati, Houston. They're all teams that I kind of see the same stuff from. The only difference is Cincinnati and Houston play in the AAC instead of in the ACC for Wake Forest. Wake Forest is going to run into Clemson, NC State, and Florida State and they lost their starting quarterback at Hartman. If they had Hartman, I'd have more faith in them, but right now I just have no faith in them. Cincinnati lost their starting quarterback to the draft, and then they draw Arkansas to start the season. So I think that knocks them out, unfortunately. Houston, senior-led offense, but they don't really play any real big names. I know they got Texas Tech, Miami, and Memphis on their, or Texas Tech, Navy, and Memphis on their schedule. But does that really surprise me? Does that really show me what Cincinnati showed last year? I don't see it. I just don't see it. 25 is my team that's in the 20s that I think will end the season in the teens. BYU is one of my sleeper teams this year. They play a tougher schedule because they have Baylor, Oregon, Notre Dame, and Arkansas. But they have a quarterback in Hall that is sneaky good. Do I think they go undefeated and beat all four of those teams, Baylor, Oregon, Notre Dame, and Arkansas? No. But can they win two of those games? Yeah. Could they win three? Possibly. Especially where they fall for a couple of these teams in between bigger games for them. BYU can definitely sneak up and grab a couple of these bigger name teams this season. So, be very interesting to see. And then the team that got the highest votes that wasn't listed was Tennessee. Personally, I think they should have been ranked, but I think with how the season's going to play out, they'll end up ranked. Personally, right now, I have them beating the team at 17 in Pittsburgh. I have them beating 20 at Kentucky. Let's see, do they have anybody else they play that's ranked? I have them losing to Alabama, but I also have Alabama winning the national championship as an undefeated team. So they'll face 3 ranked teams and go 2-1 against them. I currently have them as a 10-2 team in the SEC, so they'll definitely end up ranked, and they'll end up decently ranked. I don't think they'll be single digits, but they may end the season in the teens, which is what you need when you're building a recruiting class and you're building a program, which is what Coach Heupel's doing. Anyways, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff below. Once again, I'm Coach Bill. Hope you have a wonderful day. And ready, break.